don't lie. They scream what they know, rust don't forget, and the bones don't let go. Shadows stretch long, the secrets get song, and the creek keeps the whispers you thought were your own. Are you really digging for peace, or is that just a lie you tell to help you sleep? Sure that you really...
Welcome to the Wrecking Yard. I'm Jerry Wayne Longmire, and y'all are presumably still y'all. All are welcome here in the Church of Internal Combustion. We just ask that you show up with an open heart. Hope you guys have been having a good week. It's Sunday morning for me. I don't know if you can see the thermometer. It's pretty cold out here in the shop this morning. But I'm out here because I love y'all. Whew. I've been awake for a few hours. I don't know why I still look so sleepy. Been up doing stuff. I had to get up early every morning now because of that cat. Because, boy, she starts making some ruckus when she's hungry in the morning. And that's about the only time Ophelia's happy to see me. She's a mama's girl. She likes to curl up with mama and stuff. But daddy's good for food in the morning. We go get the food together. And then she bitches at me if the food's not right, and then we get the food right. I've been in there fussing with her. Ooh, get to feel this thing. I called it the Church of Internal Combustion since we started, and there was something I said in the first episode, and it just kind of stuck. And sorry, oh, mustache trying to go my nose or something. Anyways, I called it that since the beginning. And though we don't spend a lot of time talking about cars, it still feels that way to me. But I was thinking about, me and Rachel were talking last night, and she said, you know, it kind of feels like that is your church on Sundays that you go to. Especially now that I've been recording on Sunday mornings. But I feel more alert on Sunday morning. I feel more present, more here. When I try to record these things in the evening or at the end of the day, you know, once you've been out in your skin and walked around in the day and had the various stresses of the day on your back and different pressures pushing you different ways, it's hard to get back to being yourself. I guess. I hope that makes sense. It is for me sometimes. After I've been out, done battle with the world, it's a little hard for me to unplug. And y'all get probably the closest version of me to that that's the same as I am at home. It's close. It's close. You know, Rachel is the only person who really gets the real me. It's been that way for a long time. She's my one safety in the world, my sanctuary, where I can just really cut loose with inner Jerry Wayne, and I sing silly songs and do funny dances, and I'm a little bit of a character when I'm around Miss Rachel. But I do feel that way, not necessarily the church part, not in some kind of religious manner, but this is my fellowship on Sundays, the time you guys share with me and the time I share with y'all. I feel like I let you guys into, you know, kind of the backstage of it all. This is the only place I sit in the garage where I don't feel like I'm on a set. This is one of those places where the camera doesn't seem to matter as much to me. And I appreciate that. I appreciate having this fellowship every Sunday. kind of resets me a little bit before the week starts. Monday's big content day. Monday's always working on content, marketing, shit like that. Tuesday's usually a little bit the same. Wednesday I have a little more free flow. That's usually time I spend writing to Wally Bottoms, working on the book, that kind of stuff. I spend a lot of Wednesday writing, sitting on the porch writing. Thursdays I take my kid to music lessons, and it's like an hour away, so eats up about 3 hours with that trip and just spending time with my oldest kid. I don't like to run content on Fridays. Friday's a shit social media day. You just get less engagement, less. Everybody's worried about the weekend. Everybody's finishing up last bullshit day of the week, you know. Granted, I know some people work straight through the weekend. God knows I've been there where Friday didn't mean shit to me. But on a whole, when it comes to social media, you can tell Friday's a distracted day. It's not a good day to try to push content or get engagement, that stuff. I usually just do some posts here or there. Saturdays are kind of my day. I spent most of yesterday writing. Fussed with the Mazda a little bit this week. Well, I went ahead, I changed the plugs and the coil packs on the old Maserati. And it is running better. Put, new air filter out, just basic maintenance stuff. But, I checked that fuel pressure, and the fuel pressure looked good, but what it seems like is the thing is losing fuel pressure overnight. Because you let it sit overnight, you go start it the next morning, boy, it's a hard start unless you give it a little gas, and then it'll cough itself to life real quick. So I suspect I've got a fuel filter issue, so I guess I might take that back seat out of that car and get that fuel pump out of there. I guess maybe replace it or check it out, but for whatever reason, it's losing pressure overnight, you can tell. So maybe testing the fuel pressure during the day while the car's running, it's not the best time to do it. Maybe I need to let it sit overnight, test fuel pressure in the morning. Or I could just take it apart, since I feel like I'm pretty positive what the problem is. There's not much else to cause a fuel restriction in that fuel line, Oh, I was going to get back in the gym this week. I didn't. I don't like doing anything when it's cold. My bones hurt. Everybody, I posted a picture last night. You could see how much weight I've lost in the last year, and you get a lot of people like, oh, boy, your joints are thanking you. And I was like, honestly, my joints still hurt like hell. All those platitudes people get, oh, you're going to feel so much better. Yeah, I do feel better fitting in my clothes better. I feel better. There's less of me in the Mazda and less of me to climb out of the Mazda for sure. But I just think I am at that age where things just start hurting. Like, it feels like most of my 40s have been that way. I just suspect that's where we're at in the run of things. I have never, ever, I've torn up my right knee, never ever damaged my left knee, ever. Even in the roof fall, didn't mess up my left knee. Never hurt my left knee, ever. Woke up yesterday morning, it's swollen, feels like it's like the socket's not pushed together. It was hurting me all day yesterday, walking around in the driveway and stuff, messing with the car. And I could feel it this morning. I got up, I ran to the convenience store, get me some dip, and I was climbing out of that Mazda, like, oh, why is that damn knee hurting out of nowhere? I ain't never hurt that knee. I hadn't done nothing. I haven't fallen down. I haven't done anything crazy strenuous. Hell, I ain't been to the gym in weeks. That's the problem. It's probably I need to go back to the gym. It's hard to get motivated when it's cold. But I'm going to get my ass in there tomorrow. I already got it planned. It's been nice just being here. Just just being present with my family. Rachel's birthday's coming up Wednesday, so and I still do not have a gift for her. So I got to do some shopping today. I got to figure out what I'm going to get that sweet lady that chose to attach herself to my life. Because, my God, what a choice. Bless her. Yeah, I gotta come up with some good idea for her. She is her birthday's coming up, and her birthday's been hard for a number of years. We lost her dad pretty close to her birthday. Her dad went in the hospital on her birthday. We lost my mom. My mom's death date comes right after Rachel's birthday, and she almost died on her birthday, and it's one of those things I try to fight off every year. And some years it's better, some years it's worse. This year it hurts, man. This year, some years right after Christmas, I get in this mindset where I start thinking about my mom, and it just gets deeper and deeper. And then once her death date and her birthday are pretty close together, once that passes, then I'm okay. But this year it's punching me in the face a little bit. I don't know, as the kids are getting older, they got less and less family, and it just, she's the one that I really wish was here for all this, because she'd be over the moon about my success and everything that's happening for me, but she would be all up in them kids' business. All up in them kids' business. Especially with Junie singing and doing all the stuff Junie's doing. Junie is creating an alter ego and going to release music on Spotify, and we're helping make that happen. And some fans reached out, sent a microphone, did some really cool stuff for Junie. So I'm building a little sound booth. Just wish my mom was here for all that. It's just the empty wishes of a mama's boy is all it is. But I can feel it in my bones. There's a song by I like Noah Kahan a lot. I don't know if that's how you say his name, but I like his music a lot. I like his vibe. I like his feel. I like that banjo. But he has a song that was real popular called "Season of the Stick," I think. And song's clearly about an ex-girlfriend or stuff. But when I listen to music, it's just certain parts of the lyrics catch me. Anyway, there's some lyrics in there that it just makes me think about my mom. Pretty hardcore. There's something where he says if he can try to make some good out of all the bad, then he can get away from the darkness he inherited from Dad. And that line really sticks in my craw. But I got to shake it off, because I got to give Rachel a good birthday. We're going to take her out, eat some Mexican food, take her to Chewy's, and do some nice stuff for her. She is already making our year fantastic with all the work she does behind the scenes that you don't know about. I have to be careful when I'm home like this. I suspect we all do. I suspect that every one of us has to be careful with, it's easy to hermit for me. It's easy for me to get just off in my own head, and things fall by the wayside, and I fall out of touch with friends. And like my real friends know that sometimes I just disappear for a while, and then I'm back. But usually if I got a little sadness or anything going on in my head I'm trying to work through, then I lay low. But you got to be careful with that, man. It gets easier and easier to do that. Lay low, fall out of touch. It's real easy to get into I call it a vacuum of resentment, where you start telling yourself, well, man, so-so hadn't called me in a while. Must be mad at me about something. I ain't heard from so-and-so in a while. Must be mad at me about something. I ain't heard from my brother in a while. Must be. I'm feeling real disconnected from my brother lately. And that's not his fault. It's something I need to work out. But we have our families get together and we do stuff, but that doesn't give me and him really time to bond like we used to. And he's got my sweet little niece and my kids, and we're all together, and his parents are there, and I always take the opportunity to spend time talking to his parents because they're so close to me growing up. But I gotta go do something with my brother. I think as soon as some of the financial stress of January clears up, I usually do good this time of year, but it's a little tight this year. But that's all right. It's going to get better. The thing is, we spent a lot of last year working on things that are going to pay off this year, and they didn't pay off last year, and it's pretty evident doing the taxes and stuff that they didn't pay off last year, but they're going to this year. Things are all set to come to fruition. There's sponsorship. There's all kind of stuff going on behind the scenes that I can't quite divulge yet, but they're just, this thing got hung up by this and this got hung up by this, but we're waiting for it. It's all about to click, or it won't, and I'll still be trying to figure it out, but I think it's all about to click. I think I can get a little money freed up. I'm gonna try to go fishing with my brother this year. I really want to do something. My oldest kid wants me to take him fishing. Junie wants me to take him fishing, and we just didn't get a chance to last year. And we went, a few times when Junie was younger, but been asking again recently. I need to find a place to just go throw a line in the water with the kid. Something easy, not out there trophy fishing. But someplace where I can just have a moment with my kid and hang out and teach him a little bit about the fine art of wasting time with a fishing rod in your hand. Because they haven't experienced it as mature as they are now, and I think it'll be a different situation. So I need to make something like that happen. Anyways, I'm trying to break out of the disconnection, trying to get my head back in the game. I need to call my buddy David. I ain't talked to my buddy David all through holidays. I need to spend some time with Joey. I need to spend some time with my buddy Slade. I did hit up Slade to see if he wanted to go do some shows with me, but he's booked and we're not gonna be able to make that happen. So I need to get my ass over to his house and go visit with him. Feeling pretty good about the way the year is shaping up so far. Feeling good. I've talked to you guys. The Diwali bottom stuff is important to me, and I'm enjoying doing that. But I read all these articles about social media and how it works, and I try to stay abreast, stay on top of that stuff. What's the algorithm doing next? What is the algorithm going to favor? And you can stay abreast of that stuff. You can also read enough of it to drive yourself crazy. And some people do that. I don't get into that. You'll see these articles that's like, oh, you need to post it this day at this time and da-da-da. I have content creators when they meet me or when we first talk. That's one of the first things. Well, what days do you post? How often do you post a day? And I'm like, man, some days I don't post at all. And some days I just post engagement stuff, photos and stuff like that where I can talk to people. But I don't put a lot of strategy in that. I don't get tied in those. You got to post every Tuesday at 9:00 in the a.m. That's how you go viral. And virality for me seems to work a little more random and has more to do with the quality of the finished product. But all the predictions by the people that I do pay attention to, who usually seem to know what they're talking about, all the predictions for 2026 are saying the same thing. the days of the macro influencers, these people with 1,000,000, 2,000,000 followers, 10 million followers, their value is going down because people, marketers and ad people are finally figuring out that followers don't equal engagement. There's people out there with, 2 million followers that none of their followers are seeing any of their posts. As the algorithm continues to get more intelligent and adapt to what we're doing, the algorithm starts figuring out what clickbait is better and better, and it starts kicking that stuff to the side. And so a lot of these influencers with millions of followers that were just relying on clickbait for engagement and stuff like that, it's falling off for them, and they can't figure out what to do about it. And it's all these articles will say, your follower counts are not going to matter as much in 26. Even though I got a decent follower count across all the platforms, everything's about engagement. Well, that's where I excel. My engagement's really high on all my platforms. A little less on YouTube than others, but all my platforms, my engagement's pretty high. My growth rate is pretty good. The visibility on the stuff I post and share is really, really good. I set up a separate playlist for Diwali Bottoms where I'm just releasing those as a serial, just for people that just want to watch that. And the first one did nearly 1,000 views already, and a lot of content, a lot of comments, a lot of engagement on it. And that's the other thing they're all predicting is that people have algorithm fatigue and short form fatigue. People are tired of doom scrolling. People are tired of the short videos, the mindless crap. And folks are looking for longer form content. Substack is at an all-time high right now. People are looking for longer form content, something to sink their teeth into. So I think I have accidentally positioned myself in the right place. Once again, I continue to fail upwards. Oh, that's some good coffee right there. Yeah, so I continue to fail upwards with this experiment, and I'm excited about that. I'm excited to get a lot of new eyes on different lanes I'm pursuing and different projects. I was thinking about all this stuff because I reached out and talked to a friend of mine I have not talked to in a while. And it's somebody I've known many, many years. And we've probably been disconnected probably 5 or 6 years. When I ain't gonna get off too much in old boy's business, but I read something shocking on Facebook and was like, I need to reach out and see how old boy's doing. He lives out in Palestine now, but originally from East Texas. Good old boy. Why did I write Walt? Who the hell is Walt? Oh, Walt is Larry. Well, I already told you his name. Okay. I was going to change Larry's name. Doesn't matter. All right, Larry. Nobody knows who you are. Known Larry a long time. And he's okay. I was glad to see he's okay. He had some little health stuff going on, and I reached out because I've had some weird. Man, there's a club owner here in town who I always got along with really well. Me and the dude got along. He came out of the open mic scene, ended up starting his own club, but he comes from the business world and he does well. And he's got one club here in Houston, and I used to work there quite a bit. And then that just dried up. As I got more successful, he stopped booking me. And Rachel reached out to him and just crickets. And I don't know, several months ago, he hit me up, asked me for a guest spot on one of my shows in San Antonio. And, but he had just been kind of blowing us off, so I left him on red. I wasn't really interested in jacking with him. But he was like, oh, I'm opening this club in San Antonio, like that was supposed to. I just kept thinking, man, you don't book me for the club that's 8 minutes from my house. Why would I give a shit that you're opening a club in San Antonio, you know? And then I saw on Facebook, this is a different dude, his name's Brian. Then I saw on Facebook that he had a stroke, a medical emergency, and he was recovering from it. And then I got a weird message from him late last night asking me, he's opened up a club in Conroe, Texas, and he's asked me to play his club in Conroe, Texas. And I'm just like, bro, you got a club 8 minutes from my house you don't book me at, but you want to book me at this club an hour away, and this other club 3, I don't know. It's weird. I'm going to answer him today, but that one baffled me. Anyways, my buddy Larry, I reached out to. He's okay. He's okay, but there he has I learned something interesting about Larry, and it really triggered something I've been thinking about. I saw a content creator that I like post a video that was talking about how changing your mind was a sign of weakness. And I just thought, what a ridiculous concept. You know, granted, you don't want to be a flip-flopper back and forth, you know, about stuff, but it's okay to change your mind once you get new information or once you discover, or you just decide you don't like something no more. You're allowed to do that without that. I just have a hard time understanding how that was a sign of weakness. And I was talking to Larry, and I found out that Larry has a great story about that. So Larry's dad died when he was 19, 20 years old, I think. And his dad wasn't a good dude, right? He was not a good dude. He ran around on his mom. He was a bit of an alcoholic. You never really, he would keep a job for a little while, and then he'd get pissed off and blow up at somebody at work, and he'd get fired. And just Larry just never could seem to get it. Larry's dad never could seem to get it right. And he wasn't really a good dad to him either. Smacked him around a lot, didn't really offer him a lot of encouragement or any sort of motivation. Larry did fine for himself on his own, but not because of that dude. You know, Larry did fine on his own because Larry's a good dude. Completely unlike this other dude. But his dad died. His dad had this old, and I remember this truck when we were kids. It was a 1970 short wheelbase, 4-wheel drive, Ford F100. Had a small block in it. It was red. Had the nice chrome trim, the chrome bed rails, all that good stuff. It was a good looking little pickup, you know. Had one of the few had the factory air conditioner in it, which, you know, always makes a truck a little more valuable. And when his dad died, that truck had been sitting out behind his dad's place for probably 6-7 years in the weeds and stuff. I don't remember what was wrong with it. I think it's major engine failure or transmission, something like that, you know. But truck had just been sitting out there for a long time. His dad died alcoholic, pretty broke. Didn't have much to show for his years of labor and such. And Larry went and got that truck a few months after his dad died. And spent no small amount of money dragging that truck over to his mom's place. His mom and his dad had been split up for many years. And she didn't mind. She let him bring it over. And he did a little bit of work on the truck, but realized it was going to take a bunch of money and set the truck out behind the garage. And then the truck sat for a number of years. I never could figure out why he wanted the truck, to be honest with you. I mean, I get the nostalgia thing, and, you know, cars people talk about cars, but they don't understand for some of us cars hold so much more. I mean, that's been what a lot of this podcast has been about. So maybe I just don't see. Maybe that truck to him is just a memory of riding with his dad when his dad wasn't being a dick. I don't know. He doesn't talk much. Guys aren't always good about talking about that stuff. That's the only thing I can assume, right? Is that truck means something to him I don't understand. Well, Larry got married, I think in his mid-20s. She's a good gal. They got 2 daughters. And they moved out to Palestine, and Larry drug that old truck out there with him. And I went and saw him a couple times when we were in our 20s, and boy, old truck be sitting out there in his yard. And what you gonna do with that old truck, man? I'm gonna fix it up. It's the same old story. I'm gonna fix it up. That's my daddy's truck. I was like, I know whose truck it is. I remember the truck, but no, you've been dragging it around for a while. You ain't done much with it. Well, I'm gonna fix that truck up. All right. And truck sits. I saw him at some point. We didn't see each other a lot, but we would talk on the phone from time to time. And I seen him in. I guess I was probably a couple years after me and Rachel got married. I was going up somewhere up there to do a show, Texarkana or some shit, and I stopped in to see Larry. And sure enough, that old truck sitting back there, just looking worse and worse, just falling apart. I think about I wonder how many beautiful old cars have just sat and rotted because of some sense of pressure and nostalgia that somebody didn't want to get rid of it. I asked him what he's going to do with that truck in. He said, man, I don't know. One of these days, I get a little time, a little money, I'm going to fix it up, and do that. Well, as his life improved, they moved to a bigger house and nicer piece of property. And of course, he drug that old truck out there, sit by his garage. Doesn't seem to be interested in spending any money on the truck. Just drug it out there, and it got to where I was kind of giving him the business about it every time. Why don't you sell me a truck, Larry? I ain't sell a truck. It's my dad's truck. I'm like, well, but you're not doing nothing with it. You're not moving forward with that. That's a situation you can find yourself in. It's one I found myself in before, and I probably should have been a little more sympathetic to it. But he's my buddy, so I screw with him about it. Just every time I get him on the phone, well, when you gonna sell me that truck, Larry? I ain't sell you that truck. That's a good old truck, and it's a value. He had people barking him up for years, offering him good. When those trucks first hit antique status, their value went through the roof. And it's calmed down a little bit now, but boy, there was a couple years there where them damn bump sides were crazy values on them, especially a short wheelbase, short bed, 4-wheel drive. Now, that's not my preference. I'd rather have a long bed, 2-wheel drive, but a short bed, 4-wheel drive with factory air, already a small block truck, that was a demand vehicle. And for a while, man, I remember people was trying to buy it. Other friends of ours were trying to buy it off him. People offering good money for that old pickup. Like, no, fix it up. We're in our 40s now. We're rolling down the hill to 50. I turned 49 this year. 50's right around the corner. It's knocking on the door. I said, damn, man. Might be running out of dime to fix that truck up, you know what I mean? Parts ain't getting no cheaper. And last time I talked to him, probably 4 or 5 years ago, he told me his wife she was tired of looking at the truck. She's kind of giving him the business about, hey, it's time to do something with it. Either fix it or let's get rid of it and get you something else you want to work on, or what it is, you don't seem interested in messing with it. And, there's probably a lot of conflicting emotions there. Cars are more than just steel. Cars are more than just steel. They're the imprint of all these memories that have been laid, and they become a part of you, right? So I understand the attachment. I made a joke in a recent truck astrology about how sometimes people think this is what will fix something for me. And I think there was a little bit of that going on. Like, one of these days I'll fix this truck up and everything will be right. Everything that was wrong about my dad, everything that's wrong about me and my dad's relationship, we're going to make it all right. Sometimes people look at them projects as a time machine that maybe they can go back and fix some of what went wrong. I don't know, but just recently, I saw some stuff about his medical stuff, so I reached out and spoke to him last week, and we had a good conversation. Sure enough, about halfway through the conversation, I said, "Well, sounds like he had to have some surgery, but he's going to be fine. He had tore his neck up, had to have a little bit of surgery." Sure enough, some point in the conversation, though, I had to start screwing with him. I was like, "Well, like I got any money to buy anything right now." I start screwing with it. "Hey, Buck, you could sell me a truck. You make me a deal on that truck." And he just laughed for a while. He said, "I sold it." And I went, "What?" I mean, just caught me off guard. I said, "What are you talking about? You sold it?" He said, "I sold it." I said, "You sold your dad's truck?" He said, "Yeah, man." I said, "Who the hell to?" He said, "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." I said, "Man, good delivery." He said, "No, it's a kid. Lives down the block from 17-year-old kid." I said, "Where'd that kid get the money for that truck?" He said, "I sold it to him for $1,500. I about fell out of my chair. So what the hell are you talking about, man? You sold that kid that truck for $1,500. He said, "I did." Him and his daddy come down and asked me about it. Said they're looking for a project for him. And he said it was just the right time. He said, oh. He said, "Yeah." He said, said that kid come down and asked me about it, and I told him I wasn't interested in selling it. He said, he said, "I talked to my wife about it," and she said, "Well," she goes, "I could have," she goes, "I know his mom. I could have told him you weren't interested in selling it." And he said, "Well, I think I'm having second thoughts about it." And his wife got real excited. She goes, "You think about getting rid of it?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "I think I'm just going to sell it to that kid." He said, I knew the kid didn't have, him and his dad didn't have much money to work with. They're going to put a bunch of money in it." He said, "I don't need money. I got money. I'm fine." Truck was never about money for me. He says, "I sold it to that kid." I was like, "Damn, how long ago was that?" He said, "About a year ago." He said, "That kid drives it." He said, "I see it going up and down the street every day." I go, "How's that make you feel?" He goes, "Jerry, to be honest, it brings me a great deal of joy. Makes me smile every time I hear it plapping by when he's changed the exhaust or done something to it, and he's put go to hell stickers all over it and everything." He said, "But the kid just couldn't be happier driving that pickup. He's so proud of it." And he said it still needs a bunch of work, but they got it running, driving good enough that he can get around in it. And he said, "Boy, the kid just always got a smile on his face when he comes rolling down the road in that pickup." He said, "Makes me smile too." I said, "Man, I just blown away." He said, "Well," he said, "let me tell you." He said, I spent a lot of time sitting with it. And he said, when I first brought that truck home, I had all these ideas about what I was going to do to it. And he said, the longer it sat there, he said, instead of like looking at it like, "Oh, one of these days I'm going to fix it up," he said it felt like it was something hanging on him, like a weight on him. He said, and it went from feeling like a weight on me to feeling like a reminder that I had failed at doing this thing I wanted to do. He said, and then, every time I pulled up in the driveway, seen it, he said, it kind of bummed me out. He said, me and my wife were arguing about it, and it became kind of a source of resentment for me. That's that word, resentment. And he said, at some point, it just became a source of resentment. He said, you see that truck, he get bummed out, and he said, he's like, I didn't have time or the money to, he said, I probably had the money, but I didn't have time to work on it. But at some point, that truck became a symbol of something that he felt like he failed at. And he said the other thing was he became some source of resentment, a further resentment for him and his father. And he was like, man, he said, I don't know if I just drug it home because I wasn't done grieving him or whatever it was. He said, but let me tell you, the day I sold it, they drug it out of here. He said, I went in the garage, I cried, but I felt better. He said, I was crying because I felt better than I'd felt in a long time. That I felt like I was free. That I felt like I got out from under something that was weighing me down. I said, damn, did you go get you another project or something? He said, no, I took up tennis, which really, I said, you took up tennis? He goes, yeah. And I was like, yeah, I'm all for getting out from under the weight of something that's holding you down so that you can go use your time to do something that you're more interested in. Tennis wouldn't be the thing for me, but apparently he started playing tennis. He said, then me and my wife started going to play tennis, and it gave us something to do together. And he said, I was feeling, he's always been pretty physically fit. He said, but I was feeling better. And he said, I just didn't have that thing weighing on me that was getting in the way of everything else I wanted to do. He said, I just feel, he said, I'm happier. I've been happier since I got rid of that thing. And that's not usually the thing you hear. Car guys spend a lot of time lamenting the one that got away a long time ago. We all do it, or one we sold we wish we hadn't. But that truck became an albatross around his neck. That truck became a steady reminder of failure for him. And he didn't fail at restoring the truck. He failed at admitting the plan had expired. He had a plan at one point as a young man, but that he changed. He grew older. He got different priorities. He became a father. He became a husband. His priorities changed. His plans changed, and he never updated that plan. He kept that plan in there because it was something he wanted at one time, and then it just never. It's just crazy to me, that, like, to me that's a sign of strength and growth. That's a sign of I've changed my mind about a lot of things in my life. Things that I believed and cared about when I was in my 20s do not fall near as high on the priority list as things that in the last 10 years have made more sense to me. And as you get better information, you learn more. I wouldn't want to try to live off the priority set that I had in my 20s. It probably would have been a short life had I stuck with those. But I would say there's a lot of historical precedent for people who were afraid of looking weak and reversing their course or changing their ideas, failing. A lot of people don't know this. You know that Kodak basically invented the digital camera. Kodak, that technology all came in the beginning. Kodak was the first one that had it. But at the time, film was selling really good and cameras were selling really good. And the executives at Kodak said, we need to bury this thing because it'll get in the way of our profits. It's just a fad. People want a picture in their hand. Nobody's going to want to have to carry around computer storage to keep pictures. People aren't going to want to have to look at their computer, which now most of our imaging is digital, right? Let's be honest. Most of the pictures of your kids are on your phone. I don't know. I haven't carried a picture of my wallet in years. mainly because I have a different kind of wallet now. But Kodak squashed that. They squashed that technology in-house, their own technology. And there were several people that said, no, we are not do this. We are push this forward. This is the way the world is trending. This is going to be huge technology. This technology is going to make a lot of money, which pushes us forward. And the guys at Kodak just that were short-sighted. They knew they were wrong. They were being told by everybody around them they were wrong, but they were like, nope. This will weaken our position if we put this out, and it'll make it look like we don't believe in film anymore, and we can't have the world thinking that. We got to keep making our money off film and stuff, so we can't have the world thinking that we don't believe in our own product. And just out of that sheer mindset of not wanting to look indecisive, not looking, they basically cratered the Kodak company. It's a fraction of the company it was 40 years ago. Napoleon Bonaparte went to invade Russia in the 1800s, and all his advisors said, we don't have the supply line. We don't have, Russia is untenable. It's too far a distance. We don't have supply lines. The winter's crazy. We can't do that. We cannot win this. We cannot win this. What we should not do. Everybody around Napoleon said, no, we should not do this. And Napoleon said, no. I don't want anybody thinking I'm indecisive or I'm retreating. I don't want anybody thinking we're an unstoppable force. We got to keep that image. We can't. And, he pressed on. And what was the result of that? 400,000 troops lost. Collapse of his European dominance, the very beginning of his death, like everything goes to hell after that. And he even later admitted it was a mistake. But way after, his pride kept his troops marching to their death when wisdom and everybody around him demanded retreat. He said, no, I don't want to look weak. It's wild to me because all the Stoics talked about this. The Stoics talked about change your mind when new information becomes available. And like all these great world leaders supposedly read the Stoics, right? Like this is always a thing. They are, he was well versed in the Stoics. And, you think if anybody would have been, it'd been Napoleon with all his craziness, but apparently not, because he was so scared of looking weak that he ruined everything he had going for him, which better for the world in general, but we had our own version here in Lyndon B. Johnson. Lyndon B. Johnson didn't believe in going back to Vietnam. He didn't. He did not believe in escalating the Vietnam War. He did not believe that it was a winnable situation. But he was afraid if he pulled out, he would be the president who lost Vietnam. The Republicans would brand him soft. His Great Society agenda would be attacked. But he privately believed, his advisors warned him, his military leaders hedged. He knew that it was going to be a prolonged, unwinnable situation. But he didn't want to be seen as being weak on communism. He didn't even believe in the domino theory, but that's back when they had the domino, once this country becomes communist, this country will too. But nobody understood that communism wasn't a unified force, and that's not how it worked. So he escalated while doubting the mission. And the result of that is, 58,000 American soldiers gone. Deep a national trauma that still sits with us today. His presidency, and I'm not vying for him or against him. I'm not trying to present you with I find a lot of flaws with Lyndon B. Johnson, but as you can find with anybody if you look back in history and read enough about him. But he crushed his own presidency. We knew the South Vietnamese government was corrupt. We knew there was no way to win that thing. Everybody in control knew, and they pushed on. There's private recordings where Lyndon B. Johnson said, I don't think it's worth fighting for, and I don't think we can get out. He knew. They chose political toughness over being morally honest with himself. And it hollowed out our country, and it killed a lot of our fellow countrymen needlessly. It's one of the biggest black marks on our record. There's an example, just George Custer at the Battle of Little Bighorn. They had plenty of intelligence. Custer ignored plenty of intelligence that the opposing force was far larger than he expected. But he thought waiting or regrouping would lose him credit in everybody's eyes. He didn't want to lose glory or prestige. His entire command wiped out. One of the most decisive Native American victories in U.S. history. Just absolute disaster. The Challenger. Challenger is a great example. Challenger disaster. Engineers had been warning them about O-ring failure and cold temperatures, and management kept overruling them because of schedule pressure, public confidence, fear of appearing unable to execute, fear of delaying the launch, looked weak or incompetent. And the engineers the whole time telling them this is a bad idea. And what happened? The shuttle explodes 73 seconds. 73 seconds after takeoff. We lose 7 astronauts, a teacher, huge national embarrassment, institutional shame. NASA has to live with it. Every NASA project since then has been tinged with the failure of the Challenger and the failure of the Columbia. Another one that they were warned about. This is when institutions punish doubt, reality comes back to punish everyone. Just that same dogged, I can't change, I can't. It's so easy to get stuck in that. I've gotten stuck in that so many times in my life myself. I have broke my neck to buy cars that I thought was everything I wanted out of a car. It was everything that I thought I wanted, and then I would get this thing and I would have it for a little while and start doing some work on it and then go, man, I'm not really in this. And then I would keep that thing far longer than I should have until it became a source of resentment for me. Like, I've seen that happen to me. I've done that to myself. I think it's our natural instinct is to go against that. I don't know. I'll be curious to hear your thoughts about it. Maybe you have examples better than me. But I feel like I've done it a bunch of times in my life, and I started reading about all these historical examples, and there's more of them than I could sit here and read historical examples for just a month, of times that this has happened. People getting caught in this loop of being afraid to look weak or indecisive because they decided something wasn't for them after all. And I don't think it's true. I went back to the Stoics on it and started reading. I was in there reading Epictetus. Well, I can never say this guy's name. Epictetus. I don't know how the hell you say it. I can read it. I can't tell you how to say it. I remember when I first started reading those. So when I was a kid, this is kind of funny. I just thought it was more Greek mythology. Some weird book Granny had in the hallway. And I would read this stuff, and it all kind of made sense to me. What little bit of it I could understand as 9, 10-year-old. But I remember reading, I would always read Epictetus as Epictetus, even though it's not spelled that way as always. And so in my head, I always think of that name as Epictetus. Good old Epictetus had some shit to say about this, Anyway, I was glad to hear old Larry doing pretty well these days. His little health thing ain't gonna be too big a deal. And apparently, he's quite the tennis player now. But good for him for finding something else. And I don't know, not ended up with that albatross around his neck until he was gone. Also, shout out to the 17-year-old that got a badass truck for $1,500. If I know he's gonna sell it that damn cheap. Kind of pissed me off a little bit. Like, damn, boy, that's good. You know what? That's who needs to have that truck. Some young man with big hopes and dreams for it, not some old dude that's going to find a way to resent it. I think about that in my mom's car. It's in such bad shape, you know. Well, I'd love to get it running and have a little project car, but how bad do I want a Volkswagen Bug? You know, how much money do I want to put in this thing? You know, I may get that booger. I may do all the work to get that thing here. It's on the way here soon. I may do all the work to get that thing here and just decide to do something else with it. Boy, I was kind of studying last night. It'd be fun just to cut the front end off of it, slice the front end off of it the way it is now, bumper twisted up, everything, and build a desk out of that for the wrecking yard. Build my desk. I've got that old sycamore tree out there I still ain't done nothing with. And I found a company not far from here that I can James will let me borrow a truck and his tractor loaded up, and I can haul it over there to them, and they'll mill the damn thing for me, slice up and board. So I thought, what if I went and got that old sycamore tree milled and usable lumber, took the rest of my cedar that I've been dragging around like an albatross around my neck for over a decade now that got eat up by termites, and get that milled down to usable wood, and build me a desk out of sycamore and cedar with the front end of my mom's car on it, attached to it, but like built into it in a way that looks three-dimensional and it keeps the look of that, but also in a way that I can take it apart and move it when the time comes. You know, not something permanent here, but something I can take apart and pack up and let movers move without being too worried about it. Well, one thing I don't want to do is drag that car here and set it behind this garage for a decade and let it become a source of resentment for me. But I certainly ain't got the money to do a lot with it right now. But it may be past all that. There's a lot of rust on it. There's, sat out there in them woods. I don't know. That's just me spitballing. Let's wrap it up right. Let's do some testimonials. Testimonials, if you will. Little some comments from last week, and then I got a new episode of Diwali Bottoms for you guys, episode 3. Okay, that did not save my comments. That's awesome. All right, well, here's what we'll do. Let's mute that. And let's pull up ye old YouTube, and we'll just do it old school. I had some picked out I wanted to read, but they just didn't save to my document that I keep. It's got all my notes here. Damn, I can't hardly read that screen from here. Man, I had got to get bifocals this year. There's no way around it. I've been reading about these, some that ain't got a line though, and they're a little easier to look down. But Joey's dad was telling me, Mike, he was like, man, you be careful. Him and his mom both were telling me, be careful, because you'll be walking, you'll look down, damn near fall down because you can't see nothing. But I think I got to give it up and go with the bifocals this year. Here we go. Here's last week's episode. Let's get these testimonials, if you will. Boom, 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 boom. Here we got our at Rambling Shenanigans. I feel like a good storyteller would have enough context clues for anyone to understand what a pawpaw is, and I have a feeling you've done just that. I was able to paint a vivid I was able to paint a vivid picture of every piece of your story in my mind. Outstanding chapter, sir. Keep them coming. Oh, and if you come to Atlanta this year, I'll look forward to bringing anyone I can to come see the show. That's in my backyard, and I'd love the chance to support your art. Thank you for that, man. We are trying to get something going on in Georgia, and it is probably going to be in the Atlanta area, or at least maybe in the suburbs, on the outskirts of Atlanta. But we are trying to do some stuff there, so I will keep you guys posted. Yeah, that's that pop-all thing. So that's, I don't know how many of y'all remember, but last week I was talking about one of the people involved in my book said he kept confusing papa with my dad because he was reading it like Papa. Which, it's a weird thing to me because Papa is introduced in a whole chapter about my dad in the book. The very first chapter of the book is a whole chapter about my father. And Papa is introduced as my grandfather, like as my maternal grandfather. Papa Clark is introduced. And we talk about Papa Longmire. And then there's a whole chapter about Papa Clark and how he's my grandfather and how we're very close and how we. So I'm just a little baffled by that note, to be honest with you, because I feel like there's plenty of context there. Not even forced, just plenty of context. At Hestickney, I don't know how you say that. The Wally Bottoms is great. I appreciate the feel of the old radio serial story. It's always been a format that I have enjoyed. The story and delivery is outstanding. I'm invested and can't wait for the next chapter. Keep it up, Jerry. You're doing great. It's been a trip listening to the evolution of the podcast since episode 1. I relish the encouragement and insight that I get listening to you pontificating. I appreciate your transparency and self-awareness. I'm sure that you are not fully aware how much you're encouraging us to be better versions of ourselves every week. Keep them coming. I thank you. That's wonderful compliment. I appreciate that. I talk about a lot of these things because I'm trying to figure me out as I get older, and I'm trying to figure out some of my motivations when I was younger, and I'm trying to make me a better person. I'm trying to improve myself as I go, and if that helps somebody else, then by God, I don't know that you could ask for a better outcome than that. So if it's helping, God bless. There was one comment that I'm gonna read 2 more. I know I usually only do 3, but this one kind of tickled me. Who's it? Newbie Outdoors 987. JW, I understand you didn't enjoy doing the weatherman character, but I just figured that I should tell you the time when he started drafting Tupac was possibly the funniest thing I'd ever heard. Definitely one of my hardest laughs in 2025. Keep up the good work, JW. Hey, thanks for that. I did enjoy playing the character, but it was just, it didn't feel fully thought out and fully realized, and I didn't feel like I did enough work to do it right. And I'm going to do something else with that character. I've kind of got this idea. I want to ask my buddy Slade to do it with me, but like a documentary interview, kind of like a behind the music with Wendell Wiggins. And I think there's a lot of funny there. It'll be some long form content, but I've been studying on that lately and kind of writing like how that would go. And Slade's such a good interview. I think it would be really funny between me and him. So you may see Wendell Wiggins again. You know what I mean? You may see Wendell Wiggins. I did have fun doing it. I just didn't. You know what it was? I honestly didn't put enough work into it to make it as good as it should have been. And I was aware of that after I started doing it, and it felt a little hollow to me. It's probably why I got defensive when people didn't like it. At least that's what I'm trying to figure out about myself, about why I react that way to certain things. At Jake of all trades, master of fun. My only complaint is you jump into new characters every week. Well, kind of, but it's, as we get deeper into Diwali Bombs, you guys are going to know all kind of things about this town and about a number of people, you know. last week at the end of the episode, that's little Tony. That's little Tony playing outside with Carl Jr., who's now a sheriff's deputy, whereas a sheriff's deputy in 1987 when Tony gets killed by unknown yet. All these things connect. All these things are important. Everything, we're just building something here. And I ain't gonna lie to you, I'm not 100% sure what we're building yet, but I'm having fun building it. That being said, let me get a drink of this coffee. Thank you guys for commenting and engaging with me. I look forward to reading them every week. Of course, thank you guys for being here in the chat with me. But let's take a oops, did not mean to do that. Let's go back to Diwali Bottoms, Texas. In the corner of the small room, a Martin D18 leaned against the windowsill. The morning sun illuminated the tuning knobs and the inlaid pearl CF Martin & Co. against the swallowing blackness of the ebony overlay. Small, dark, half-moon cigarette burns littered the landscape of the first 3 to 5 frets. The nitrocellulose finish all but non-existent on the spruce face, replaced by the darkened chemistry of sweaty hands and memories of nights that weren't coming back. It had once been new, like all things. The young oilfield worker that brought it back to camp after a trip to Longview was sure he'd be the next Jimmy Rogers. Played it night after night, much to the chagrin of his co-workers who did not hear the resemblance to the singing brakeman and oft compared his caterwauling to a singing boxcar axle. He'd left it with a pawn shop in Overton at the end of his hitch, where it sat unplayed and passed over for newer models, until Danny Ware purchased it as a birthday gift for his kid brother Donnie when he turned 13. Donnie had spent his teenage nights bent over learning chords, clamping his fingers down on the frets till blood sprang forth and stained the steel strings and ebony fretboard. He was a player by the time he was done with school. Wasn't nothing Doc Watson done what he couldn't replicate. Could have gave Roy Clark a run for his hee-haw money if he hadn't developed such a mighty appetite for bennies and cheap liquor. He was laid up in a dive motel in Texarkana on a week-long bender when Danny showed up and drug his threadbare ass home for the birth of his son Tony. Of course, he kept it together long enough to cut pulpwood with his big brother for a few months before the call of the road whispered in his ear too many nights and he was back in the wind. Tony and his mother, just a memory clawing at the back of his brain for those precious few minutes every morning. There were no chemicals coursing through his blood. Danny had retrieved the Martin from a gal down in Houston Donnie had been shacked up with after his ill-fated choices landed him on the long road in Huntsville. Danny had given it to Tony on his 13th birthday. It's possible he hoped it would inspire his young nephew to explore his talent. It's also highly possible he hoped it would serve as a reminder not to pursue his father's path. A few feet away from the watchful witness of the Martin, Tony remained under the spell of the glorious uninterrupted sleep of a hormone-riddled 17-year-old. Just a few blocks away, she watched through the screen door as her son stared down the balded Cooper tire as it swayed in the cool October breeze. His dad had hung it from the gnarled old sweet gum tree that hadn't been much more than an errant weed when he was a teenager in this very house. The young man was tall and lean, his red hair curling from under the edges of a dark green mesh ball cap, a striking water moccasin emblazoned on the front. He'd been at it a while, his efforts dampening the collar and underarms of his t-shirt. He danced a step back, light on the tips of his grass-stained tennis shoes, moss-green eyes squinting slightly against the sun as they locked in on the movement of the tire. She smiled behind the screen as his right arm cocked back and rocketed the lace-brown leather ball through the center of the tire as if ejected by a cannon before careening off the trunk of the indifferent old tree. Carl Jr. looked to the back porch as Alana stepped out clapping. "That's my baby right there." His cheeks reddened a little, even past the blush of exertion as he walked towards her. "Thanks, Mama. I was just working some soreness out." Her eyes narrowed. "Take the compliment, kiddo." Just sharp enough to get his attention. "Yes, ma'am. I'm about to go help Dad down at the shop." "Well, he's been down there with Mr. Ware all morning fussing with one of his saws. They sat out here on the porch and listened to y'all's game last night on the radio. Should have heard them two carrying on about you and Tony. He was so excited." Carl Jr. chuckled. "I can't imagine Dad getting excited about anything." Alana stiffened some as she folded the dish towel she was carrying lengthwise. "Your daddy used to holler all the time." Carl Jr. seemed doubtful. "About football?" Her own green eyes glittered in the sunlight. "About life, kiddo." Before she smirked and popped him lightly with the towel. "There's eggs in the pan after you get cleaned up." The young man vanished in the home at the promise of food. She marveled at how much he could eat and still be lean as a fence rail. Them legs must be hollow. Her hibiscus had dropped its last few blooms into the dark, rich earth of the flower bed Carl Sr. had dug her. She stooped down to collect them as her mind recalled the wild-eyed young man that would tap on her window at night to talk her into running down the creek banks in the moonlight, far from the watchful eyes of her own father. "That boy don't know nothing about nothing. Ain't a thing boring about my Carl," she half muttered to herself as she fussed with the yellowing leaves of the hibiscus. The sign on the front of the single-bay shiplap white building on Main Street read Haynes Repairer in faded orange script. The R and the flourish at the end of the repair was a little disproportioned and shaky. Carl Sr. had paid a local painter with a penchant for drunkenness a bottle of Old Crow for the work, though he should have withheld payment till the job was complete. Either way, folks still bring their saws and equipment for Carl to fuss with. He'd had an aptitude for fixing engines when he got drafted, and the Army had plenty of them to be fixed. They'd stuck him in the motor pool, and he picked up a little extra education along the way. Once he had come home, Danny, or Mr. Ware as he still called him, was so happy to see him in mostly one piece that he'd given Carl a loan to get his shop going and kept him busy enough with his own saws and equipment to pay him back real quick. Carl Jr. could hear Mr. Ware's laugh before he stepped into the bay, the air lined with the sweet smell from bearing grease and the pungent bite of the gasoline his dad used to clean parts. "That was a hell of a game, Red. You and Tony are looking good for next week. Ready to leave them boys from Lever's Chapel looking plumb silly." "Thanks, Mr. Ware. We're going to do our best, but them lines are tough this year." Carl Jr. grinned at the long-haired old man. Everyone but his parents in this town called him Red since the 3rd grade, but he only really liked the way that Tiffany said it. Carl Sr. straightened up on his stool and looked over his glasses at his son. "Boy, do me a favor, get back there and bring Mr. Windmeyer's pumps up front. He's going to be around about 2 to pick 'em up," his eyes already back on the gasket he was scraping off of Briggs & Stratton with his pocket knife. "Yes, sir." The young man disappeared to the back to get the hand truck. "Damn, Carl, you can't congratulate him on winning before you put him to work?" Danny chastised Carl Sr. Carl never looked up from his scraping before replying deliberately. "What's he need me to congratulate him for? He already won. That don't change the fact that work's got to happen today." Danny spit into the coffee can under the workbench. "Well, you're a tough old bird, Carl Haynes." Carl Sr.'s lip turned up on the end into a sly grin. "Not as old as you, Mr. Ware." Tony could have heard his uncle laugh from his house if he still hadn't been dreaming about Tiffany and what it would be like if she walked towards him after the game instead of Red. Tune in next week for more from Diwali Bottoms, Texas. There's episode 3 in the can. Where's all this going? I was writing a plot line for it, a blurb for it. And it was like, it's not a who done it, it's a how the hell did we get here? And I love that. Oh, let's get wrapped up and get out of here. I got to get this thing edited and uploaded for you guys. Thank you, as always, for spending time in the chat with me on your Sundays. I know your time is valuable. The most valuable thing you can give anybody else on this planet is your time. I'm thankful that I was mentored by men who knew you could do everything right and still lose. Not the dripping arrogance and peacocking that gets mistaken for masculinity these days. I wish a lot of those men were still around. They'd be baffled by some of the conversations that we're having now. Men that didn't put value on the number in your bank account. They knew even a fool could wind up winning on any given day in the financial realm. They understood that sometimes good men don't get their due, and that wealth has never been a reliable measure of success. The culture of masculinity now is the flex. I see comments where guys say stuff to each other like, just admit you're poor. That's the poorest, weakest mentality I've ever witnessed. It's just people living by tired cliches and platitudes like they're explanations and justifications for every choice they've made, especially when it comes to work. Grind now, relax later, right? That's one you see a lot. Yeah, that's great unless you die. Hard work always pays off. Look, let me tell you something. That is a myth. No one worked harder than my paternal grandparents. They worked themselves to the bone. And for the extent of their lives, they didn't have a pot to piss in, nor a window to throw it out of. Hustle beats talent every time. I can't think of a single example where that's true. I really can't. Everyone who's successful has talent in some arena. Some niche of what they're doing, they're talented. I saw the video the other day with the tagline, consistency is character. Not if you're consistently an asshole. It's okay to change your mind. This ain't new information. Hell, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, all warned in one shape or form about the fallacy of confusing consistency with wisdom. If the path ain't working for you anymore, it's okay to change it. Whether that path is a toxic interpersonal relationship, a career that doesn't fit your needs or your interest anymore, or even an albatross of a project that you've saddled yourself with. If you're struggling today with those kinds of feelings, pull out a piece of paper or the notes app on your phone and write down all the ways it serves you and all the ways it doesn't, and see which way the scales tip. I'm rooting for you. We do not have to live in prisons of our own making. I'm JW. I love you. Ooh, 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 ooh. Staying alive, staying alive. Oh my goodness. Boy, it's still chilly out there. I better get out there and mow in this chilly air. That'd be fun. This chilly air makes me want chili. I probably shouldn't have no chili. I've been eating beans and cornbread for a week. Rachel made a bunch of beans and cornbread. I've been living on that mess. Woo! The problem is, early in the morning, my butthole is singing the song of my people. Hope you guys are doing good. Y'all be safe. I'll see you next week.